Okay, we'll go ahead and call the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting to order. We'll start out with a roll call. Miss Freddie. Cicely. Eric's missing. Mark Presley. Ron Moylan. Kendra Stafford. Okay. We do have a quorum. Others present. We have Miss Rosalie and I'm gonna forget your name, sorry. Amanda Harrington, yeah. Okay, next thing on the agenda then is approval of minutes from the April 2nd meeting. I think everybody in your packet has a copy of the minutes in front of you, so if you want to take a minute to take a look at them. Any additions or corrections? Otherwise, I entertain a motion to approve. Motion by Ron, second by Mark. We have a motion and a second to approve minutes as presented. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next thing is any changes to the agenda. If nobody has anything to add, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Motion by Mark. Cicely, was that you? Kendra. Motion by Mark, second by Kendra to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries, so the agenda is set. Next thing is public hearing, but I don't know that we got anybody signed up to talk, so we'll move on from there. We did have one item of old business. That's the major home occupation that we tabled at the April 2nd meeting, and that application has been withdrawn. So no other new business. We'll move on, or old business. We'll move on to new business. So Rosalie, you want to introduce our planner?
Yes, I would really like to welcome Amanda Harrington from RCS Planners. She is our new planning consultant. I've heard about Amanda through a training that I went to that Dixon had their own planning consultant. I thought, wow, they can do that. So I started looking into it and reached out, once I got Amanda's information, reached out and she came in and spoke with myself. And then she also spoke with the mayor, Jack McCall, and John Kerr, who is the planning commission chair, and interviewed with us. We also had some other planning consultants interview with us, and we really were impressed with Amanda and are very happy to have her on board with us. Amanda, why don't you introduce yourself and what all you've done?
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm just really pleased to be here. Again, I'm Amanda Harrington. I live in Dixon County, in the unincorporated part. So I've got a really healthy mix of agricultural in my blood, and city as well. I was born in Murfreesboro, but I was raised in Southern California, so please don't hold that against me. I practice planning in, of course, in Tennessee, but also in California and Indiana. My undergraduate is from Indiana. My graduate degree is in public administration that I earned in California. My background is in city management. I'm a generalist, not a specialist. So my planning experience comes from the boots on the ground, not through a specific planning program. So I've got about 25 years under my belt, and I'm just really pleased to be here. I'm pleased to have met Rosalie and through our mutual connection in Dixon. So I am just really, really proud to be here and I'm really glad to be able to do this training for you all this evening and really look forward to working with you all. So thank you for having me. Actually, I've got 10 communities that I work with. You all are one of them. I've got most of the territories that are in Dixon County. Obviously, I mean, because I live there. So that just kind of makes sense. But I also advise and plan for Coffee County. Robertson County is my furthest north. And then, of course, you all. And then I've got, and then I do Hickman County as well. So I've got a really good mix of city and county. Thank you.
So I suppose the next thing based on what I'm looking at here is you want to go through some of the training stuff that's in front of us. And who leads that? Okay, that's what I thought.
Okay. So for tonight, we're going to do just kind of a BZA 101 for you all. First, I'd like to kind of get an idea, how many of you all are brand new to Board of Zoning Appeals? Okay, so we've got not a problem. That's why we always go through 101s. Even for those people who have lots and lots of experience, it's always good to have kind of a refresher. I try not to read slides to everybody. You all know how to read. I know you do. Some people like to learn different ways though. So there are going to be a couple of slides that I'm going to read to you just for emphasis. And then there are some that we'll just kind of briefly go through just for the record, just so I know that I've gotten the information out to you all, and then we'll just go on right on into discussion. I like to do my trainings a little bit more informally. I love to have lots of Q&A. So if there's anything that comes up during these trainings, during this one or any other that we may have, please, please, please don't hesitate to ask. There's nothing worse than a training that goes on and on and on and on and on, and someone just is talking to you and you never get a chance to say anything edgewise. So don't hesitate to just go, Amanda, hey, woo. All right. So with that, we'll just go ahead and get started. You've got your presentation in front of you that we'll just be going through. One thing that you all may have noticed in your zoning resolution, where you get your rules and regulations from, is that, boy, this looks like standard language, right? Well, there's a reason for that. It is standard language. And that language is basically basic enabling legislation that was adopted in the 1920s, believe it or not. And the Tennessee enabled legislation in 1935 that came down from the federal government. That was handed down to us by the Housing and Urban Development in its infancy. Tennessee enabled legislation in 35 that established the parameters for local planning and zoning in the state, including the powers and functions of the Board of Zoning Appeals. So when you look through different zoning resolutions in the state, and it looks like, boy, we've got all the same kind of language, there's a reason for that. Now, does it have to stay that way? Absolutely not. It's your document. You can make it the way that you want to make it. But there are certain parameters for the Board of Zoning Appeals that have to be just so. And that is what we'll be getting into today. Mainly Tennessee Code Annotated. When you see in your presentation, TCA is Tennessee Code Annotated, section 13.7-107 through 13.7-109. And in your zoning resolution, Article 8, Section 8.070, that is where you find your information about the constitution of your Board of Zoning Appeals. So who among you have served the longest on the Board of Zoning Appeals? Do we know?
Probably me.
Probably you.
Might be Ron.
Ron? You're the veteran? How many years? Oh, that long. It's been a while. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So when you first joined, did you have any idea of what it was that you were joining? Did you know that you were joining a quasi judicial board? The very first meeting. Good. Somebody told you, that's a good start. Okay. So what you all are is a quasi judicial board. And what that means is you are a court of last resort at the local level. And what that means is that the decisions that you make here can only be appealed up to a court of local jurisdiction, which is your chancery court. There is no other place to appeal your decisions that are made here. So what you do as this body is extremely important. Not that the planning commission isn't, not that the county legislative body isn't, but the Board of Zoning Appeals is special. You all carry a lot of weight in your decisions, and that's why Tennessee Code has a special section in your 13.7, 13.7, 107 through 13.7, 109 that specifies exactly what you can do and what you cannot. That you don't have any local discretion over. The state of Tennessee tells you what you can and cannot do because you are that special quasi judicial body. Now, I make a joke that there's going to be a pop quiz at the end. That's only one thing that I'm going to ask you to remember is that you're a quasi judicial body. If you take nothing else from today, you're a quasi judicial body. Okay. So your ability to provide flexibility is limited. A municipality, or in your case, a metropolitan unit of government may not confer powers upon the board not granted by the enabling statute, and such a grant is ultra vires and void, meaning you cannot go outside the powers that are granted to you by the state of Tennessee. As I'm waving once again, Title 13 at you in your face. Okay. So moving on. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on quorums and testimony and appeals of the BZA decisions. You all know what it takes to make a quorum. There's 7 of you, 4 makes a quorum. Were you aware that you're allowed to call people to testify? Okay. Have you ever called people to testify? No, but you're allowed to. If ever there's a situation that you've got a case in front of you, now maybe not so much a situation where there's a swimming pool variance or a home occupation or something like that, but we're talking some of your major cases, like let's say that a mining company wants to come in and establish a quarry, speaking from personal experience. And they're coming in and they're seeking a special exception, for example. You may want to have a land use expert or a mining or quarry expert come in and testify on your behalf on the case. Yes. Impact to the community or a certain large company or geographic. What exactly about the example is why you mentioned? Just simply the fact that you can. Yep. You can have members of the planning commission come in and testify if you'd like. If there's a case that, especially if there's a case of an administrative review, which we'll get into later on, what the 3 items that you all are responsible for. If there's something that's being recommended or not recommended, or that has been hotly contested in the community, you have that ability to come in and have somebody testify before you. Now, testimony is not, well, I think that she shouldn't wear an orange blouse, she should wear a green blouse because it just simply looks better. That's not testimony. A testimony is something that is from an official qualified expert. So we're not talking just a matter of public opinion. We're talking about actual fact that's based in something. It could be your building official. Your building official can be called to testify as well. Yeah, they're usually pretty good at that. Unfortunately, they get called more than their fair share to have to testify in front of various tribunals. Boy, that makes it sound really, really heavy, doesn't it? But it's true. But so the board may call upon any other office or agency of the city government or any level of government in the performance of its duties. The planning commission shall be permitted to submit an advisory opinion on any matter before the board, and such opinion shall be made part of the record before any such public hearing. Does that answer your question? Okay, sure. Again, we've talked about the appeals of the BZA decision. Any officer, agency, or department of the city or other agency may appeal. I'll be able to speak at some point during this presentation, I promise you. May appeal any decision of the board to a court of competent jurisdiction as provided for by state law. Again, that's Chancery Court. Do we have any other questions so far? I know I'm talking kind of fast. I just want to be sure that we get through a majority of the information before our time is up. Because I have until 6:30, 7. I have until 7, so I'm speaking. I can slow down a little bit. Okay. Okay. All right. Administrative procedures and policies. Who here is familiar with the Sunshine Law? Everybody should raise their hand. Okay. If we're not, then that's okay. So we're going to become familiar real quick. Just a super, super really fast primer on it. 3 or more, say no more. Okay. If you get, actually, it really should be 2 or more, say no more, but we'll be generous. Okay, so Tennessee has an open meetings law where if two or more of you are together, so 2 or more of you are together and something comes up that's on an agenda, for example, and you go, hey, did you see that application come through? And you go, yeah, what about it? Can you believe that nonsense, right? And you come in and you go, did you see that application come through? I know how I'm gonna vote that. Do you remember last year when she came up here and she's all rude and she came in here and all this, that, and the other, and all this? Well, if you weren't in a public forum, in an open meeting, you've already said you know how you're gonna vote. You've got 2 other members of your board with you. You violated the act because you have already given an opinion on how you're going to vote, and you've already stated why, because you didn't like how she approached you last year during a meeting. It's really that simple. Just be very, very mindful of when you are together, not to discuss any applications that are on your agenda upcoming. And I don't know how far in advance you all get your agendas.
Today.
Okay. Okay. That's okay. If you happen to know of somebody like a neighbor, for example, may say, hey, I need to, get a variance for this. What do you think? How many times has that happened to you? I can tell you that happens to me. I can't go to Kroger sometimes. The Kroger and the ice cream aisle, I'm telling you, they'll get you every single time because you're standing there looking. You're standing there looking, they come up and go, hey, well, it's really difficult to say, I'm really sorry, I can't discuss this with you. Yeah, because you want to be neighborly. You want to be able to have a good conversation and you don't want to come off as rude, right? One of the best things that I can tell you to say is to say, I'm really sorry. This is just not something that I can discuss with you at this point in time, but I'd love for you to call the office and have a discussion with Rosalie. Or maybe we can meet with Rosalie in her office as the primary staff member, and we can sit down and we can talk about something if you've got a concern. That's correct. That's correct. Because you don't want to get into a situation where they say, well, what do you think about that? And you go, or I really support that. I support his decision. I support this application for the variance, and this is why. Da, 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 da. And the reason why is because you're already prejudging something. What you all are supposed to be judging and making your decisions on is everything that is before you at the time of the meeting. Not hearsay, not verbal talk. It's supposed to be in writing, in your packets at the time of the meeting. Now, that doesn't mean that, during the course of your meeting that you can't take, of course, into account the testimony that you receive. And that sort of thing. But really, the bulk of your decision is supposed to come from the testimony or not from the testimony, from the information that you receive in your packet. That's why staff reports, meeting minutes, all of those things are so very important to be sure that they are complete and accurate. Your meeting minutes, be sure that they're accurate. If you weren't at a meeting and your name is listed, be sure that you get your name off those meeting minutes. Again, from personal experience, if you're not at a meeting, make sure you're not out, listed in the meeting minutes. And if you were there, be sure that you're listed that you were there. Because all of this, if you end up getting and I'm going off on a tangent here a little bit. If you do end up going into a chancery court, the judge isn't going to sit here and listen to a recording. They're not going to watch this tape. They're going to be looking at your meeting minutes. So if your meeting minutes aren't accurate, if they're not correct, you're out of luck. Okay. Enough on that. All right. So that happens. So open meetings law and sunshine. So open meetings and sunshine, we've covered that. Records, your records retention policies. Rosalie is excellent at maintaining your records in accordance with your open meetings laws and your records retentions and all of that. She has your meeting minutes and all of that. So I just encourage you to keep up with that. Your training, you're obviously already doing that. You're required to get 4 hours a year of training. So this is going to count toward that. So how do you know if a training counts? You record it. How do you record it? The powers that be. Oh, I thought you said the powers that be. I'm like, well, kind of. Kind of. Tennessee Code Annotated tells you what you can get your training into. Yeah. But there are different categories that you can receive your training in. So ethics, floodplain, there's a wide range of topics that you can get training in. If you happen to be in your real life, when you're not in your BZA mode, if you happen to go to a conference of some sort and you think that it may be relevant in your training, then you can always ask Rosalie and say, hey, do you think this would count as training? You can get you can bring back an agenda of some sort. And from there, you can petition your peers, your fellow Board of Zoning Appeal member to accept that as training toward your training hours. Okay. So just like this will be on your next agenda to count this training as part of your training hours. Okay. So be really nice to your fellow members, otherwise they won't approve your training hours. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. All right. Here's where we get into the really fun stuff. All right. So now we're getting into as a quasi judicial body, as a what? Love you guys. Yes, as a quasi judicial body, the BZA provides an administrative remedy which must be exhausted before most courts will intervene in zoning decisions. So what do you do? What do you do? What 3 things are you guys responsible for? variances, special exceptions. And what else? There's one other thing. If Rosalie makes a decision that somebody doesn't like and they want to challenge her, what is it called? Kind of. It's an administrative review. An administrative review. That's right. And it's not as scary as it sounds. It really isn't. I've had administrative reviews done on me. Nobody likes it, but it's one of the easier things to go through, especially if you have someone, especially if you have someone who is really good at following the book. So the technical is hear and decide appeals where it's alleged by the appellant that there's an error in any order, requirement, permit, decision, determination, or refusal made by the building inspector or other administrative official in the carrying out or enforcement of any provision of this ordinance. Oh, that's a mouthful. So basically, long story short, Rosalie makes a determination. Rosalie says, I'm sorry, you're not eligible for a variance. Okay? So technically, can Rosalie say that? Technically. Gray area. Why? Right, because of constitutional protections, right? Everybody has a right to due process. Everybody has the right to file for a variance. Everybody has the right to file for a special exception. Everybody has a right to file for whatever it is that they're filing for. Are they going to be successful? She can advise all day long, yes or no. Do they have to listen to her? No. Should they? Yes, because she does this every day, all day long. Now, is somebody saying that somebody coming in and saying, well, I'm going to file an administrative review because she said she said that she's not going to let me file. Is that a reason for an administrative review? No, that's not. They can go ahead and file. There's nothing wrong with that. Now let's say that she comes in, let's say that somebody wants to come in and file for a special exception. Okay. And she's advising them, you do not qualify for a special exception because these are the rules in our books. You do not meet these rules. Well, I'm going to file anyway. Yes, sir. Okay, not a problem. Here's your paperwork. They go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. The Board of Zoning Appeals says, no, I'm sorry. We don't feel that you meet the special exception. Would they file an administrative review or would they file some other kind of appeal? Exactly, because it's not on her, right? She didn't do anything wrong. They went through the proper channels and everything. At that point, it would go through Chancery Court. What would the Chancery Court review? The rules. What else would they review? Yes, yes, very good. They're going to review the meeting minutes. So your meeting minutes should be able to reflect that Rosalie advised that the special exception was not granted because it didn't meet the following criteria. She would have put that in a staff report, which is perfectly fine. Your meeting minutes should reflect that you all took the matter under advisement and that you also made that similar finding. If you don't put that in your meeting minutes, if you don't state a reason for the findings that you make, you're out of luck. Otherwise, your finding could be found being called, what's that term? Arbitrary and capricious. Meaning that it's just, you just kind of felt like it that day. Okay. So again, you want to be sure that you're documenting everything that you do in this body. And that's why your meeting minutes and your documentation is so very important. Any questions so far?
We also get our comments from our planning consultant.
That's right. That's right. And that's why you will see your staff reports from your planning consultant, especially on variances and special exceptions, are sometimes 3, 4, 5 pages long. Because they literally will go point by point by point by point by point, especially when it comes down to variances. Now, if you don't have a whole lot for me to write about on special exceptions or whatnot, I can only work with what you give me, right? That's in the book. Variances are a little bit different because as we go on, except the next one is special exceptions, I think. Because as we go on, your variance requirements are handed to you by the state of Tennessee. So those are a little bit easier to write opinions for. Your special exceptions, however, are those that are controlled by your book. Yes, your book. Your book will have your special exceptions, conditional use permits. I'm not sure which language exactly you all use. Special exemptions, okay. So your special exceptions are for you to hear and decide in accordance with the provisions of any such ordinance. Requests for special exceptions or for interpretation of the map or for decisions upon other special questions. Have you all ever been asked to make a determination on your zoning map before? That you recall? Any,
Repeat the question.
any interpretation of your zoning map before?
No.
Not through BZA? Okay, all right. That's not very common, so that's why I asked. I've never known a BZA to actually have to have a zoning map interpretation. So that's good. That's a good thing. But your special exceptions, so your special exceptions are handed to you by your book. It's not something that you get to just decide. Special exceptions are also commonly referred to as conditional uses or uses permitted on appeal because special exception is legally permitted use subject to conditions as may be attached by the BZA. They're already determined by your zoning district by the zoning ordinance. The BZA does not have the ability to create use exceptions. You do not have the ability, if you are hearing a case and somebody says, well, I'd really like to be able to open up a chicken coop in a residential area. You do not have the ability to grant that use if it's not specifically called out for in your book. That's in your zoning resolution, in your ordinances, in your book of ordinances. It's different than your charter. Yes, sir. Yeah. You're only allowed to work with what your book gives you. You cannot create anything new. To do so is called to create a use variance. And why is that so? Why do we think? You've got new guidelines. And who does create the guidelines? The commission, right? The county commission. The county commission ultimately does. The Board of Zoning Appeals is a special subset, also known as a quasi judicial board. You are not, yeah, QJB, you're the QJB. QJB, we're gonna get you a t-shirt that says QJB on it. That does not take the place of the county legislative body. Okay, to do so, to try to create a use where one does not exist is taking the place of the county legislative body, and you cannot do that. Only the county legislative body can determine what uses go where. Okay, after their own legislative process. It's not like they get to wave a wand and go poof, there it is. Okay. But the BZA does not have the authority to create special exceptions. That's the one thing that I want you all to remember. So no matter how compelling the story, no matter how compelling it is that someone comes in and says, I just want to do a dog kennel in whatever zone or whatever location there is, even if there's nobody for 5,000 miles or 500 miles or 50 feet from where they are. If the book doesn't say that they can do a kennel, they cannot do a kennel. I don't care how cute the kitties are. I don't care. You gotta be strong. You have to say no. You have to say no. Okay? Yes.
Yes. So I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but I just want to confirm that there are a way for the BZA as a whole to suggest or bring to the commission some variances or some special exceptions that we would like for them to include
Yes.
into it, like at their next session of when they start to address those aspects.
You absolutely can. And one thing, and that's actually something that a really good staff planner will pay attention to. Because if you especially more on variances and special exceptions, but if you start seeing a bunch of variance requests in one particular area or for one particular thing,
Signs.
signs is probably one of them. Signs are always one of those fun First Amendment, those good old 1A issues. Um, but if we start to see patterns of things starting to arise, then that's something that we can always suggest to be brought up to the planning commission for examination. Yes. Any other questions so far? No? Yes? Are we having fun yet? Okay, all right, good deal. All right. Well, it's 6:36, so we're getting to the fun stuff. Now, I could torture you and read variances to you. Okay, I won't do that, only because you guys have been a great audience so far. This is the language that's handed to you from the state of Tennessee. Okay, so I'm gonna break it down. So the board shall not grant a variance except where special circumstances or conditions fully described in the findings of the board do not generally apply in the district. You've got to be special. You have to be special. You can't grant a variance just because you like somebody or because you feel sorry for them or because you don't like them and you just want to clear them off the agenda and get them the heck out of here. I've seen that happen too. In granting a variance, the board shall determine that the following criteria are met. The particular physical surroundings, shape, topographic conditions of the specific property involved result in a particular hardship as distinguished from a mere inconvenience. Let's think about that for a second. A hardship as distinguished from a mere inconvenience.
Got it.
Okay, a hardship.
Just have an example of that.
Okay,
A lot over here, when it was established, the zoning regulations, they needed a variance for the setback because when the lot was established, there weren't any zoning regulations. Now they want to build on it, but they can't fit the building within the.
mm-hmm.
Yep, a lot of record prior to zoning.
Is a sinkhole an inconvenience or a hardship? That would be a hardship. Yep, think about East Tennessee. You've got lots of granite, just mountains, you've got lots of, you know. There you go. There you go. Now, let's think about somebody wanting to do a tear down of an existing structure and they want to rebuild a house that's bigger. Any kind of variance related to that, is that an inconvenience or is it a hardship? It's an inconvenience, right? Because there's nothing wrong, assuming there's nothing wrong with the tear down. They just want to build a bigger house. No, in that case, you could use your own judgment. You really could. Yeah, because you can tell, I mean, if, if it depends on what kind of variance they were seeking, right? So like, let's say if it's lot coverage, right? If you've got a regulation that says that you can only cover 50% of your parcel in buildings, and they want to cover 70% because they want a bigger house, you can use your judgment on that. They just want a bigger house. Now, that's a really good question. That would almost, I would wonder if that would fall under a special exception, under a hardship. I would have to look at your rules to see if there would be a, oh, you don't have it anymore. Okay, then that would be granting a use. And you can't grant use variances because that's illegal. Yeah, yeah. Because I would be granting two principal structures on one lot. Yeah,
Our rules say you cannot do.
yep. So,
So we don't have any more?
Special hardship
Yeah,
permit.
okay. Wanna rest it.
so your zoning rules are interesting because they're not like your typical law. Where your typical law would say, you know, if it's silent in a typical law, if it doesn't say you can't, then generally you can't, right? There's no law against that. Well, in zoning, it's different. In zoning, if the book doesn't say that you can, then you can't. You cannot. So that's what makes things kind of tricky also, because you can't zone for everything. You can't think of every possible situation. It's just not possible. So you have to use your judgment. You have to use your flexibility. You have to use your best possible rationale in terms of trying to come up with situations that when you're applying your judgment to these situations. Yeah. Any other questions so far? No? New member, are we good? You okay? You haven't run out of the room screaming yet, so I assume you're hanging in there with us. Okay.
So what you just said, if it's not in the book, you just can't. I mean, if I want to judge for the right, but if it's not in the book, I mean, you can't judge on that.
Give me an example of something you're thinking about. When it comes to you, let me know and we'll talk it through. We will talk it through. Yeah. The conditions upon which the petition for a variance is based would not be applicable generally to other property within the same district. If you have 3 lots in a row that are all pretty uniformly shaped, I wish I had a drawing board. I'm a visual person, so I'm drawing in the air. And then you've got one that is kind of oddly shaped. And then you've got the rest of them are all uniform. The conditions upon which the variance is based would not be applicable generally to other property within the same district. You've got that one that sticks out. That would be appropriate because it's that one piece of property that the variance would apply to. It couldn't apply to all of them. It would, because they're not all irregularly shaped. It's just that one that is kind of funky and just kind of sticks out and is not regularly shaped. The granting of the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that's denied by this ordinance or to other land, structures, or buildings in the same district. This one is sometimes the harder one to when you're looking at variances. You want to be sure that you're not going to give any kind of special privilege to one person over another. This one generally comes in when someone is coming in and asking for forgiveness. How many times do we get that? A lot. A lot. Not just here, but a lot. Yeah, yeah. And those are the really, really hard ones because the ones that come in and try to do it the right way aren't getting that special privilege. Yep. So those are always the really, really, really hard applications. And I encourage you, as much as it's as hard as it is to say no, to say no. Unless there's a really, really, really compelling reason to say yes. Yeah.
That's why we got her. That's why she's out of the ditch.
There you go. There you go.
So let me ask this, would it be fair to almost summarize those two statements in the sense of that you would, it's only recommended to grant them the variance requested if it were to compensate for what makes it special in the sense of it's not applicable to any of the other surrounding areas? Okay.
Mhm. Very good. You're doing our next training, by the way. I love it. I love it. All right, the next one is financial returns only shall not be considered as a basis for granting a variance. But I've already built it, as they say, coming in for asking for forgiveness. Oops, what do you do? What do you do? But it's already built. What do you do? You fine them? What else can you do? How much can you fine them? You can, but it's a little hard once it's already been, yeah, but you can. You could condition it. You can fine them $50 a day until, but but it's already done. You can ask them to remove it. You can have them tear it down.
Say, I'm very successful.
Yeah,
Concrete.
That's why we make jackhammers.
you can still tear it down. Yep. You can ask your building official over there. She'll tell you. Yep. And that's the hard thing. And that's why we always want to encourage compliance. Our goal is compliance. Fine them. So like, let's say that somebody comes in and they've put up a greenhouse, and they put it too close to the side setback, for example. Well, I just want a variance for it. Well, no. What about your neighbor? I mean, they have a right to have some space and everything else. And, oh, well, my neighbor's fine with it. Well, okay. So the neighbor's fine with it. How much does that count? It doesn't. And I hate to say that. It sounds cold and it sounds cruel sometimes, but the neighbor's opinion, good on you. But for you all, you think judge, whoever your chancery court judge is going to care about what your neighbor says? No. No. So you can pick it up and move it. If, if at all possible. And in that case, that might be an opinion that you might want to get your testimony of your building official. And what can be moved and what can't. I mean, that I don't know. I mean, that's way out of my wheelhouse. I'm not on the building side. Okay. All right. You can put it down, you can pick it up. Yeah. Not easily sometimes, but all right. The proposed variance will not impair an adequate supply of light and air to adjacent property or substantially increase the congestion of public streets or increase the danger of fire or endanger the public safety. Again, you're getting to a situation if you're building too close to the side of the side setback. If you're building something that towers over your neighbor, like let's just say you didn't have building height maximums and you decide that you're just going to build a turret on the side of your house because by gosh, you've always wanted to have a turret like a castle. And it's been your childhood dream, and so you're just going to build it. And it happens to block your neighbor's solar access. And she just really doesn't like it, and she decides to take you to the BZA. Guess what? You're likely going to end up taking it down. Yeah. And here's the big one, that the alleged difficulty or hardship has not been knowingly and intentionally created by any person having an interest in the property after the effective date of this ordinance. That's the asking forgiveness instead of permission. You cannot intentionally create your own hardship. Okay? Questions? No? Okay, thanks. So here's just some other court cases that I wanted to bring to y'all's attention. The board is not authorized to grant a variance when the only hardship to an owner in complying with the zoning regulation is the result of a condition existing not in the land itself, but in a structure which was created or altered by the owner and property in violation of the zoning ordinance. That's McClurkin versus the Board of Zoning Appeals, the Tennessee Court of Appeals, 1977. No non-conforming use of neighboring land, structures, or buildings in the same district, and no permitted or non-conforming use of land, structures, or buildings in other districts shall be considered grounds for the issuance of a variance. How many times have we heard, well, he does it right down the street, 2 doors down, but how come he can do it and I can't? What do you say in situations like that? What is the best response that you can give? You can. But in the event that Rosalie isn't available at that exact moment in time, just say, you know what? We don't know the situation at that time, but what we do know is what we have before us today. You can. I would avoid getting too technical and just almost, I hate, keep it simple, almost like you're dealing with a child sometimes. And not that I'm saying that you deal with people like they're children or anything like that, but meet them where they are. What we're dealing with is what we have before us today. And we don't know the situation, what happened with Joe. Well, I'll tell you, I appreciate that. I appreciate that you would tell me what happened with Joe. But what we're dealing with is today. And today you're in violation of whatever it is, or today you're here to ask for a variance for blah, 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 blah. And then just try to redirect them back to the issue. Legal non-conforming. Legal non-conforming. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about. Yes, yes. So legal non-conforming. What's the key there? Legal. It had to be legal first. It had to be legal first. And that's what people sometimes forget. Right. Right. Right, exactly. It had to be legal first. It had to be legally permitted, or it had to be before zoning came into effect. Yes, sir. Yep. Well, you can. Yeah. But yes, there is such a thing. There is such a thing as grandfathered in. If there's a change in your book, from setbacks, for example, if your setbacks in your low density residential change from 50 feet to 60 feet, and somebody comes in and says, well, I have an addition that I want to make and I want to do an attached garage, but if I do it the same way, then it's going to look funny. I just want it to line up with the house, so that it matches. I mean, that's reasonable. Cause you're just wanting to line up with the rest of the house, and at that point in time, it's technically legal non-conforming. the house is legal nonconforming because of a change in the regulation, not because of anything that they did. Mhm. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Well, it's 6:54 and I've chatted at you quite a bit. That's the end of the presentation, the formal presentation. I'm happy to answer any additional questions or scenarios that anybody may have.
Thank you.
Sure.
Chairman really doesn't have a report, so Rosalie, you got anything you want to talk to us about?
So I have listed on the agenda the various things that have been happening in the county. I'm sure you've seen where they are now building the new TCAT building. They've been doing the blasting. They did discover a sinkhole over there on the property. And they have remediated it now and have continued on preparing to create a pad for that building. The ARC building over there in Powercom is now also going forward. They're building a building. It has gone through planning. It is a test building for the pellets, the explosive pellets for airbags. So it is like an explosion building. So it has specialized construction. The health department is being remodeled. That is going forward. And of course, I'm sure you are seeing that they are continuing forward with the new field house over there by the football field. Also, you will be hearing more about the county and the city ordinances being combined. That has been a labor of love, wouldn't you say? For maybe the past year and a half, and it is just about compiled and ready to be presented in pieces to the county commission. And our office manager position in the building office is still open. So if you know of anyone who would be interested in applying, please send them my way. I'd be happy to speak with them. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mark. Second by Freddie. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. We stand adjourned.